Magandang gabi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to bring you some facts that I learned about the Philippines, which are cool. If you're learning a language, the cool thing about learning a language is it's not just learning a language. You get to dive into a culture. It's like a new world opens up to you. And I learned a bunch of cool stuff about the Philippines history, and I'm going to tell you about it today. Okay, so thank you for coming to watch. If you haven't subscribed yet and you like this type of video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and share it. If you know anyone else that would like it, it does help me get it out to more people. I got this cool book for Christmas. It's Tagalog Made Easy. The cool thing about it, it's words, phrases, it's a bunch of basically common use stuff that you would need to learn. It's good for traveling if you're going to travel to the Philippines. But a cool thing about it is the first 20 pages of it are all about the history of the Philippines. So what's crazy is in the Philippines, there's been a lot of change, like with government, with corruption, with different countries kind of having rule over it. Even as recent as like in the early 2000s, there's been a lot of things that have changed. So there was this whole period of control where the Spanish came and took over control of the Philippines. And then in the late 1800s, the Spanish and Americans actually had a big war there, which went down in Manila Bay, and the Americans took control of the Philippines. And Americans stayed in control of the Philippines till like World War II, I believe it was. And there's been power struggles ever since then. The Americans basically ceded control, and Philippines got its independence in the mid 1900s, which is not even that long ago. And then even within my lifetime, like in the late 80s, mid 80s, there's been different rulers that like corruption. There's been uprisings of like local militias and like groups there's been coups to take over and oust current presidents or prime ministers. I can't remember if they call them prime ministers or presidents down there. I believe it's presidents. And then the crazy thing is, even in like 2004, there's been people kicked out and new government coming in, and they're trying to clean up like the corruption and make it a better place for tourism and for all the local people to live and thrive. There's such an abundance of like resource and people with skills and like beauty for people to go and visit and travel. So they're really trying to like clean everything up and market it more to the world to come there as a better place to visit and things like that. And I always thought, like, my in-laws are from Manila. Well, not right in Manila, but just in the province outside and in Manila area, and they came here, and I always wondered, why did you come to Canada? When we went to the Philippines, it's beautiful. Like, it was like paradise there. I'm like, why would you come to Canada to live in like the Arctic tundra? And even when you live on a beach in the Philippines and everything's cheap and affordable. And I mean, it wasn't always like it is now. So I guarantee you that like when they went back, when we went to the Philippines, it was 4 years-ish ago. They went back for the first time in 39 years. And they couldn't even recognize half of it because there's so much change there. With all the infrastructure being built out, the big businesses and like high-rise condos and tourist places, it's completely different than the perception of a third world country that you would get kind of if you've never been to a place like that. So I definitely recommend going to the Philippines if you've never been. It's definitely a life-changing experience. It is way different than Canada, but there's a lot of good things that are different there. So, and I don't know like how the whole political thing is going on there right now. I've heard that the current president's cleaning stuff up, but hopefully he does. We went to a beach called an island, and with the big, like one of the most popular beaches in the Philippines, Boracay, or Boracay. I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but It was packed. Like it was beautiful. And the thing was, it was, even since we went there, I've heard things have changed where they got rid of, like if you walked along the beach, there was like seaweed. There was so many people. There was like those chairs in front of all the different restaurants. There was people building sand, like things, big, huge, massive sand castle with wording and art on them, and you could take pictures in front of them. And there's thousands of people, or hundreds, I guess, of people walking around trying to sell you stuff all the time, coming up to you, which can get like, it can get kind of overwhelming if you're there for a while and you're just like, okay, how many necklaces do I need to buy, right? And like the thing that they got rid of, I guess, all of that stuff on the beach. So you can actually go to the beach now and it's all clean. There's no garbage. There's no one pestering you to sell you stuff. Then they still have those markets which you can walk through and barter, which is fun to do. So definitely want to go back there soon, and I'm hoping I can speak Tagalog fluently by then, as long as the world kind of opens up to travel again in the short term. We'll be back there soon. So anyways, cool thing about learning languages is you get to really dive into the culture, and there's a lot of cool stuff about the Philippines that I did not know until I read about it in this book today, which is very cool. One cool thing was the Philippines has, in related to languages, over 80 different languages and dialects, and there's 3 that are the main ones: Tagalog, Cebuano, and Ilocano. And there was like kind of a fight about which one they were gonna promote with the government to like kind of unite the country more. And I guess Tagalog won out, but it was more of like, people speaking Tagalog was more of like a Metro Manila type of a thing, whereas Cebuano was in the south, in Cebu and areas around there, and Ilocano was more north, I believe. So there was kind of a war amongst the local people on like fighting to see which kind of language would win out as the national language, Filipino. But Filipino, the language, is based on Tagalog. You can also call a male Filipino person Filipino, and then when you call the country Philippines, is actually not with an F, it's a PH. So kind of cool. But there are tons of languages there that are actually spoken as people's first language, and then they learn Tagalog as a second language, or English as a second language. And English, because of the American rule in the early 1900s to mid 1900s, has a huge influence, and it's basically the language now that they use as a second language in schools that you learn, and the government official language in many areas is all in English, which is crazy. So when you go to the Philippines, if you're Canadian, American, you can get around with English no problem. The street signs, the menus, everyone pretty much, like the taxi driver, like they speak English. And even when you go to Manila, they don't speak full Tagalog usually. It's like even when they're speaking with each other, the natives, they call it Taglish, because it's a lot of Tagalog mixed with English. And if you watch a movie, which I've been watching YouTube clips, it's never full Tagalog. So it's got Tagalog and English mixed all together. Taglish, I don't understand when they go back and forth. They just do it naturally, whatever they get, I guess, is common now. Even my wife, when she speaks, she doesn't, like, there's a lot of words that I'm learning that she's like, I've never even heard those words because they're not really used. They use a certain part of the sentence in Tagalog and then they throw in an English word usually. So it's very cool. So when I'm learning all this Tagalog right now, it's almost going to be kind of weird to speak it to someone, because they're going to be like, you don't speak naturally, because they throw in so many English words all the time. But anyways, that being said, it's really fun. I'm getting better, and it's only maybe a week away from my 3 months in, where I'm going to be doing, hopefully, like a little conversation with my father-in-law or mother-in-law. Depends on COVID. We might have to do something different, but I'm going to do something and throw out a video, and that's coming pretty quickly. So we will see you, mamaya.